We are finally doing a voiceover for the first tract at the tracts at White River. We've been working on this for a while. We've had a ton of people asking about it. These are mostly 10-acre tracts, extremely close to the White River in Independence County, Arkansas, northwest of the town of Batesville, about 10 or 15 miles northwest of Batesville. You can see the White River there. It's extremely close. We're looking at tract 1 right now, which is actually the closest tract to the river. You can see the road system, the purple and green lines. And just to the west of the tract, you'll see that purple road that extends basically to the river. And that's an actual river access point. So there's kind of a small concrete boat launch in place. That cleared line that you see running with the river is actually a set of train tracks. And so very, very few people on the east side of the White River, in this area especially, have actual physical access to the river other than by foot, because you have to cross the train tracks and they sit quite a ways above the water. But in this case, there happened to be basically a train trestle, I guess, where it crosses over, and there's a good sized, fairly short tunnel, and then it's paved right down to the water essentially. So you could put a small boat in there, you could put a canoe or kayak in using that, or you could fish from that spot. I mean, a lot of options, but the White River is awesome. This specific area is well known for some good fishing, we've been told by the people we've met out there, including actually trout, brown trout, rainbow trout, but specifically also smallmouth bass, some catfish, and a couple people have told us walleye, but we've yet to see anybody pull in a walleye. We'd like to see that. So we already said tract 1. Let's zoom out a little bit and then we'll come back in. We've got some shading on tract 1 just to make it more visible, but we'll remove that in a moment here. I want to zoom out and show everybody kind of where we are. The labels are going to get funky when we zoom out. That's just the way that MapRight operates, or it's called Land ID now. Sorry, they changed it recently, changed the name. Ooh, and I think we've got some really slow internet speed, and that can affect it. Well, oh no, we got away. It got away from us a little bit. We'll see how we can do. We've had some internet issues, and MapRight does require a decent internet connection to work even on a home computer. Okay, so as we scroll out a bit, and I'll try to get this centered. So down here on the lower right, you've got the town of Batesville, Arkansas. That's the county seat for Independence County. You can check the different maps and whatnot in the listing page. We've got a ton of different maps to show you right where Batesville is if you're not familiar with it, but you've got different tracts of state land nearby. Obviously, you've got many access points to the White River. Batesville is a fairly small town, but I mean, it's got a ton of stuff going on as far as different hotels and restaurants and stores and different stuff like that. So it's certainly a very usable town. So directions from Batesville, and if you come from the south or from the east, you'll likely come from Batesville. We come from the north because we're coming out of Springfield, Missouri generally. But most of these directions will still apply. We don't have a street address for any of these tracts because they've never had a residence on them. But if you just really need a street address to put into your GPS or whatnot, we can get one from a nearby house, and that'll take you most of the way there. And then you can look at the maps within the listing page for the last, half mile or whatever. So if you're coming out of Batesville, you would take Highway 69 to the north for about 9 miles. You're going to come to the little town of Cushman, which essentially just looks like a few dozen houses on each side of Highway 69, although they do have a little convenience store and a post office and that kind of stuff. But Cushman is where you're going to go west. So you'll go west off of Highway 69 onto Colleytown Road, and that should be marked right at the highway. But you'll see a road that goes west by the little convenience store in Cushman. So you'll take that. It kind of veers off, but you stay on Colleytown for about 2.25 miles, and then you're going to turn onto Kelly Road. This makes it look like it just becomes Kelly Road, but you actually do turn. zoom in here a bit. And let's go back to Cushman for just a moment. Okay, so there's Cushman. So you'll go west off of 69, and you go through the town itself for a couple blocks. And just follow it around. It gets a little confusing because here you've got Collistown Road, but no, you don't want that. You want to stay on Collietown Road. It's not too bad once you're out there actually on the roads. So you follow, like we said, Collietown for whatever it was, 2.25, about 2.25 miles, and you'll start looking for Kelly Road, which goes left. And when you see that, you'll take it. Go to the left, go south on Kelly Road, Kelley. And on Kelly, you go a little over 2 miles as well. Let's see here, about 2.5 miles on Kelly Road. So this mileage is not exact. We forgot to check it with the trip meter when we were out there, so we just used the distance reading on MapRight. So it instead of 2.5 miles, it might be 2.4 or 3, or it could be 2.6 or 7, but it's about 2.5 miles on Kelly Road. And then you're going to veer to the right. You're going to go right onto Lock 3 Road, which is shown here as the green line. And Lock 3 is going to be a gravel road. So Collistown Road and Kelly Road are both paved. You're going to go right onto the gravel road, which is Lock 3 Road. It's a funny name for a road, but it's called that because it actually leads to lock number 3 on the White River. So whenever it was in the 50s or 60s, I'm not sure about that, they set up 3 or 4 power generation dams, hydroelectric kind of mini dams on the White River by Batesville, and it helped to provide power to the town. With each dam, along the side of each dam, and if you look at this one, I think you can see that. We'll zoom in on lock 3 here. Okay. So this is the dam. The actual lock, I believe, is this deal over here on the right. And if you're familiar with rivers or say the Great Lakes, for instance, Panama Canal, a lock is just a little device that allows a ship to traverse the dam, essentially. So a ship wouldn't go over the dam, obviously, but it could come into this lock area. They close the gates, which raises the water level in the lock, and then drops it down, and they can go upriver or downriver using the lock. I don't know if it's still in service or not because there's not ferry boats really on the White River anymore. But that's why it's called Lock 3 Road. Okay. We'll go back to where we were. Okay, so you're going to take a right, go west onto Lock 3 Road, and again, that's gravel. So take that, keep on continuing on that, and it says 2 miles to the property. Okay, all the spacing's off on these words, but yeah, essentially, after about a mile on Lock 3 Road, you're going to get to the tracks at White River, and you'll enter toward the east side of track 6 is where that county road comes in. So that's after about 1.5 miles. To get to tract 1, you still have to go a little over a half a mile. So by the time, if you set your trip meter at the start of Lock 3 Road, it's about 2 miles, probably a hair over, to get to tract 1. So the nice thing about MapRight or Land ID, you can get the free app. You can get that set up on your phone, and I think we have a tutorial on the website showing you how to use its features. But essentially, if you use the interactive map from the listing page for this property, you'll be able to open that up within the app on your phone for Land ID, and then as long as you allow the location permissions, you should be able to see a colored dot indicating where you are on that actual map. So it's awesome for going into rural areas and looking at different properties, because it'll show the property and where you are on the property. And it's not supposed to be exact, but it gets you a pretty good idea. So I don't know if these tracks are marked yet. They might be when you get out there. Just depends on what the guys have done. But if they are, then there'll be track signs in the trees, and if not, then you'll just have to use the maps from the listing page. We always recommend, we used to say print out the maps from the listing page, but a lot of people don't really even have a printer at home anymore. So what we say now is pull it up on your phone when you're in an area with good internet, and then at least screenshot each map, save it to your photos. And then if you get out here and for whatever reason you don't have service, we have Verizon, and I think in the higher spots out here the service was fine. In the lower spots, not so much. But if you screenshot those maps and just have them saved to your photos, then even if you get out here and get turned around a little bit, you should be able to figure out what's going on. Okay, so Lock 3 Road, the green road, it'll go take you through Tract 1. It then curves around. You've got these little spur roads that go off. One goes, like I said, to the river itself and the access. There's actually, and this is kind of cool, there's another little spur road that cuts back to the east and then goes up to the north line on Tract 5. So that gives you an additional access point on Tract 1, because that is an easement just for property owners. That the purple roads are basically not public, and the green road is. But what we want to mention to everybody is Lock 3 Road is not a well-maintained county road. From what we understand, it's because once you get past about this area right in here, the last house, the last kind of residence that the county has to worry about is right about here. So they basically only grade the road up to this area somewhere, and after that it's really minimal. I mean, I'd be surprised if they run the grader through it even once a year. So you absolutely do want a four-wheel drive truck or SUV out here. Most people already would have that if they're looking at a rural piece of wooded property, but that's a definite must on this one. Just because it's a county road does not mean that it's a well-maintained county road or maintained at all. So when we go out here to any property that's rural, we'll have a four-wheel drive and we'll have some kind of saw. I mean, ideally a chainsaw, but failing that, a battery-powered Sawzall with a wood blade on it is really, really handy. And if you don't have that, then just a bow saw or some kind of hand saw, because it never fails. The one time you don't have a saw, you'll get way back in there and there'll be even a small tree or a limb across the road that you just can't move by hand and you need to cut it up. So you do have to have a saw, just to be on the safe side. So Tract 1, so as we mentioned earlier, it's the closest tract to the river. It's the closest tract to the river access. Let's turn that shading off so we can actually see Tract 1. And we're using the Land ID interactive map. This is kind of, I guess, the master map, so we can do all kinds of changes with this. I'm hoping. Oops, nope. Here we go. And did that shut off that gray? Come on. There we go. Okay, good. Tract 1, and once we switch to the topo map, you'll see what we mean by it. It probably has as much or more potential than any of the tracts out here just because of the way it lays. But right now, it's not as usable as some of the tracts, again, because of the way it lays. So let's go ahead and look at a topo and show you what we mean here. Okay, so we will go to, whoops, haven't used this for a little while. Okay, topo map. So if you've looked at topos before, then this does make sense. If you're like most of us, then this just looks really bizarre, but we'll kind of tell you what it's indicating here. These lines on the topo map are called contour lines, and their purpose on a topo map is to show you the elevation change. It shows you how a property lays. So most topo maps that we use, the elevation change between two topo lines is 20 feet, and I believe that's the case on this one. So what this is trying to depict, it's trying to take a two-dimensional map and allow you to create in your mind's eye what the three-dimensional land looks like. And so essentially, since these contour lines are depicting an elevation change of 20 feet between them, when the lines are close, that indicates steepness. When the lines are spaced further apart, that indicates flatness. So if we look up here toward the north side of Tract 1, if you look at the big spacing between those lines, that's basically telling us that that north part of the property is, if it's not flat, then it's pretty darn close, and probably has several large areas that are completely flat. I mean, that's some big spacing on those contour lines. So that's awesome to see. And in fact, if we peel back here, because this is real Ozarks. This is hills and hollers and ups and downs. The topography that we're seeing right here is very typical for the Ozarks, especially the area by the White River. And you'll notice when you look at the topo map, there is very little for large flat areas. In fact, this north half of Tract 1, and I'm just scanning over the tracks quickly, the north half of Tract 1 probably has more flat area than any other tract out here. And that's just a quick glance at this. There could be others, but from what I'm seeing right now, there are very few other tracts that have, 3-4 acres of what appears to be pretty level area that Tract 1 seems to have. So, on Tract 1, the thing that we don't know is if there's a way to drive up to that north side. So we do have the county road, this green line that crosses over the property, and we do have the easement road or trail, the existing road or trail, the purple line. But from there, you've got to figure out a way to get to the north side. And we literally, what you'll see in the videos, that's what we've seen of the property. That's going to be the case on all these properties. This is just a few hours from our office, and so on some projects when we can spend days and days and days and weeks on the property, we don't really have that option on this one. We're only able to take a few trips down and kind of get the videos and stuff that we need. Unfortunately, we're not able to really explore the properties at all. So what you're seeing in the videos is essentially what we've seen of the properties. And that being said, we don't know if there's any kind of trail on Tract 1. There's always a way to make a trail, but you may have to get out there with a tractor and a loader or a skid steer, or potentially even hire someone with a piece of heavier equipment. And we might have a contact in the area for that if you wanted to hire someone with a mid-sized dozer for a day or two, which would have no problem creating a driveway to the top. But you basically would just have to really get out and explore it and see. Odds are there'd be enough of a trail or natural opening that you could either take a four-wheeler or walk or whatever to that big spot on the top. But really you just have to get out and check it out. The other thing is, based on the topography here and the way this is set up next to the river, odds are really good that if this doesn't already have a river view from the north side, that you could create one without much of a problem. So when we're looking at views, the main thing we're looking at is what you don't have control over. So let's say, for instance, you owned, this whole chunk throughout here, whatever it is, 200 acres on this part right up next to the river. Well, guaranteed you could have a river view, because you could at some point trim whatever trees you wanted, because they would all be on your property. When we're looking at a tract like this, when you don't own the land to the west of your property, you need to kind of take that into account when you're thinking about the views. So just because this sits up high doesn't mean that you could look directly west at the river, because these mature trees out here could be 60, 80, basically up to 100 feet tall. So if you're looking for a view straight west from this tract, it certainly could be possible, because we have a rise of, looks like about, 40 or 50 feet from the west edge to the highest part on the northeast side. So the potential for a view, but really the reason that I'm confident there'd be the potential for a good river view is the way this tract is situated. If you're up here and you're looking southwesterly, by the time you get down here and cross over the property, your elevation has dropped enough that all these trees down here are well below your line of sight. So pretty confident to say that from up here on the property, even looking just southwest, you're going to be having a good view of the White River. So I mean, that's pretty cool, and that's likely without any trimming of trees. But again, you'd want to get out there and verify that if you could. Topo map actually shows 2 different creek beds on the property. We've got this one here, kind of toward the middle, and then we've got the other one here right at the south line, essentially, and they both go westerly and flow on into the White River. So they're going to be wet weather creeks or seasonal creeks. I think this one down here on the south, we've seen running when, like, the first time we were out there. This one that crosses more over the middle, I'm not sure about that. Sometimes it's hard to, unless you're out there looking for it, it's hard to really see, but it's definitely not going to be a year-round creek situation. But on the plus side, odds are you're going to have some cool rock formations. You're likely to have some fossils, gravel deposits, even potentially some caves or springs. I mean, when we go to look for a cave or a spring or something really cool on a property, the first thing we do is see if there is some kind of valley with a creek bed or even a wet weather creek toward the bottom, because that's generally where the caves are discovered, where the springs are discovered. So that's just another thing that makes Tract 1 pretty darn interesting. So dimension-wise, it sits nicely. It's kind of a bread and butter size. It's about 330 by 1320, so about 10 acres in size. A lot of space, a lot of room to maneuver on this. Let's go back to just an aerial. Heavily wooded, mostly hardwoods. Although if I recall, we did see a few pine trees out there and some cedar trees and whatnot, but mostly it's more than likely red oak, white oak, hickory trees, chestnut trees. We've seen walnut trees, sycamore. Sycamore might be I always forget if sycamore is hardwood or softwood. I'll have to look that up. But we did definitely see sycamore trees on the south side here by that little creek bed. So that's pretty cool as well. This tract, the notes I have here show originally it was to be sold as 3 tracts. So rather than just selling the whole 10 acres and letting someone get all that, it looks like there were plans to sell this part on the north as Tract 1A. This smaller piece here is Tract 1B, and then this other chunk here as Tract 1C. But I am happy to report that it's just all going to go together. So you'll get A, B, and C, or technically you'll just be getting Tract 1. It'll be about 10 acres in size, and you'll be good to go. You get the county road. There are some people who, for whatever reason, don't like an easement road. But in this case, in most cases, it's not a situation where someone gets to come through and go around your yard or anything like that. They just get to use the road the same as they would if it were a public road, except a public road can have unlimited users, whereas on this, really it's just a small handful of people that would ever have the right to use this road to cross over, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that's Tract 1. This came out certainly longer than we expected, and we really didn't even cover the area as much as I wanted to, but I think we have another video, or we will have another video on the main page for the tracks at White River, so you could check that out, and we'll spend a little more time going into the area and the other large cities it's by. The location is great because you're within just a few hours from like half a dozen large cities like Memphis and what am I trying to think of? Is it Dallas is nearby? Tulsa is, Springfield, Missouri, Little Rock, Arkansas. It's just in a great location. So a lot of different airports you could fly into if you choose to fly. Otherwise, if you drive, by virtue of its location, it's probably at most a 2 or 2.5 day drive from anywhere in the U.S. I'd have to verify that looking at a map. Maybe not from, northwest Oregon, but most places you can get here in a day or two if you choose to drive. But hunting is fantastic. We put a deer camera out there a few months ago, and we have hundreds, if not thousands, of good deer photos of many, many, many different deer. The guys have kind of gone through them, and obviously a lot of deer you get many photos of, and that certainly happened, but there's also just a large number of deer out here, as well as turkeys, hundreds of wild turkeys that we have photos of, big ones. So that's cool to see as well. So you've got all that. You've got the fishing in the White River. Certainly awesome for recreation. Building a little cabin, maybe even a home, but I believe these would be off-grid right now. I know the power's nearby, but it's not within the development, so probably best suited for hunting and recreation and all that good stuff. So if you have any questions on this, just let us know. Getting harder and harder and harder to find good land, to find any land, but to find good land, especially in the acreage range. Anything over 2, 3, 4 acres is getting really scarce. So a nice 10-acre tract like this near the river, in such a good location, we love it. If you have any questions, let us know. You can shoot us an email, or you can give us a shout on the phone. We would love to hear from you.